On January 11, 2026, a message from Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, appeared on X, formerly known as Twitter. The post quickly captured the attention of millions, both inside Iran and around the world. It wasn't just another update from a political leader. It was a moment that would ripple across international headlines and diplomatic circles. It wasn't a routine post. It was a direct warning to the United States. The language was unmistakable, and the intent was clear. Iran would not stand by in the face of mounting threats. The supreme leader's words carry the weight of Iran's government and religious authority. In Iran, Khamenei is not just a political figure. He is the highest religious authority, and his statements are seen as both a command and a symbol of national resolve. This message was crafted for a global audience, signaling defiance and strength. It was designed to reach not only the Iranian people, but also foreign governments, international media, and anyone watching the escalating standoff. It came at a time of intense pressure. Mass protests rocked Iran's major cities, with citizens demanding change and voicing frustration. Meanwhile, the US, under President Trump, was ramping up threats, increasing military presence in the region, and issuing harsh statements against Tehran. The post was a calculated response, meant to show Iran would not yield to foreign or domestic pressure. It was a signal to the world that, despite internal unrest and external threats, the leadership remained unbowed and resolute. To understand its impact, we need to look at the message itself, the timing, and the broader context of US-Iran tensions. Every word was chosen carefully and the timing was no accident. It came at a moment when the world was already on edge. The warning was more than a tweet, it was a statement to the world. It was a declaration that Iran would defend its sovereignty, and a reminder that the stakes in this conflict were global, not just regional. It set the stage for a new chapter in a long, fraught relationship. The history between the US and Iran is filled with mistrust, missed opportunities, and moments of crisis. This message was the latest in a series of high-stakes exchanges that have shaped the modern Middle East. The world was watching, knowing this message could shape the future of the region. As leaders and citizens everywhere waited for the next move, one thing was clear: the stakes had never been higher, and the eyes of the world were fixed on Iran and its supreme leader. The Supreme Leader's office posted the warning in Russian, a deliberate choice. The first post accused the US of miscalculating in its approach to Iran. The second warned that past American failures would repeat due to erroneous planning. The message was clear: Iran would not be intimidated, and the US risked another defeat. The Russian language, though imperfect, was chosen for its symbolism, not its grammar. Iran was signaling defiance not just to the US, but to a wider audience. The posts challenged American strength and highlighted Iran's resolve. By using Russian, Iran was also speaking to Moscow, hinting at deeper alliances. The world took notice. This was a bold, public challenge. Iran's message: underestimate us at your own peril. The warning reverberated far beyond social media. Inside Iran, the warning came amid widespread unrest. As the country found itself at a crossroads, the streets of Tehran and other major cities were filled with the sounds of chanting, the air thick with tension and uncertainty. For many Iranians, daily life had become a struggle, with rising prices, unemployment, and a sense of hopelessness fueling anger against the authorities. Protests erupted over economic hardship, lack of freedoms, and government repression. What began as scattered demonstrations quickly grew into a nationwide movement, uniting people from different backgrounds and generations. The grievances were many: soaring inflation, stagnant wages, and a government seen as unresponsive to the needs of its people. Security forces cracked down hard. Hundreds, possibly thousands, were killed or arrested. The government deployed riot police and plainclothes agents, determined to stamp out dissent at any cost. Families waited anxiously for news of missing loved ones, while fear and defiance mingled in the streets. The government blamed foreign interference, especially from the US, for fueling the unrest. Officials claimed that outside forces were manipulating the protests, using them as a tool to destabilize the country and undermine its sovereignty. Internet blackouts made it hard to verify the true scale of the crackdown. Social media went dark, and families struggled to communicate, as the government tried to control the narrative and limit the flow of information both inside and outside Iran. The regime felt cornered, facing threats from within and without. Behind closed doors, officials debated how to respond. worried that any sign of weakness could embolden their opponents or invite further foreign pressure. The warning to the US was as much for domestic audiences as for foreign ones. Leaders sought to rally their base, projecting unity and resolve, while sending a message to the world that Iran would not be easily intimidated. It projected strength, aiming to reassure supporters and intimidate opponents. Pro-government rallies were organized, with loyalists waving flags and chanting slogans in support of the leadership, determined to show that the regime still had a firm grip on power. The leadership's message: Iran would not be destabilized by protests or foreign pressure. Officials insisted that the country's enemies would fail, and that the government would restore order, no matter the cost. The crisis at home made the regime more aggressive abroad. Military parades and defiant speeches signaled that Iran was ready to confront its adversaries, using the unrest as justification for a tougher stance on the international stage. The world saw a government under siege, determined to show it was still in control. International headlines questioned how long the regime could withstand the pressure, as images of chaos and defiance spread across the globe. The warning was both a shield and a sword, a signal to the world that Iran would defend itself, and a reminder to its own people that the government would not back down, no matter how turbulent the times. US-Iran relations have been hostile since the 1979 Islamic Revolution. Decades of mistrust, sanctions, and proxy conflicts have defined their interactions. Under President Trump, tensions escalated. The US left the nuclear deal and imposed crippling sanctions. As protests grew in Iran, Trump's administration voiced strong support for demonstrators and threatened very strong options. Iran saw this as an existential threat, responding with warnings of retaliation. The standoff became a dangerous game of brinkmanship. Each side accused the other of destabilizing the region. The Supreme Leader's warning was a direct response to this escalating confrontation. The world braced for what might come next. Posting the warning in Russian was a strategic move. Iran wanted to show it wasn't isolated, it had powerful friends. The message was aimed at Russia as much as the US, signaling a united front. By invoking Moscow, Iran raised the stakes for any US action. The choice of language was a diplomatic signal. An attack on Iran could draw in Russia. It complicated US calculations, making intervention riskier. The move reflected a shifting global order, with Iran and Russia challenging US dominance. The warning was a public declaration of alliance. Iran was telling the world, "We are not alone." The message was as much about alliances as about threats. Over the past decade, Iran and Russia's partnership has deepened significantly, driven by a shared opposition to the United States and a mutual desire to counter Western influence in the region. What began as a pragmatic relationship has evolved into a complex alliance, with both countries finding common ground in their geopolitical ambitions and security concerns. US sanctions, intended to isolate both nations, have instead pushed them closer together. Facing economic hardship and diplomatic isolation, Iran and Russia have found strength in cooperation, expanding their ties in both military and economic spheres. Joint projects, energy deals, and technology exchanges have become more frequent, as each side seeks to offset the impact of Western pressure. Russia's ongoing war in Ukraine has made Iran a crucial supplier of drones, weapons, and military technology. Iranian-made Shahed drones have become a symbol of this new military cooperation, with assembly lines in Iran working overtime to meet Russian demand. Moscow now relies on Tehran for critical support, making Iran's stability and continued partnership vital for Russia's strategic interests. This reliance has elevated Iran's status on the world stage, giving Tehran a new sense of leverage. Yet, beneath the surface, the alliance remains pragmatic, rather than heartfelt. Many ordinary Iranians are skeptical of Russia's intentions, remembering past betrayals and wary of becoming too dependent on a powerful neighbor. Still, for both governments, the partnership is seen as essential for survival in a world where old alliances are shifting and new threats are emerging. Leaders in Tehran and Moscow are determined to make the most of this relationship, even if trust is in short supply. As Russia's traditional allies weaken or distance themselves, Iran's importance to Moscow only grows. The balance of power in the region is shifting, and Iran is seizing the opportunity to assert itself as a key player. This new dynamic gives Tehran unprecedented leverage in its dealings with Russia, allowing Iranian officials to negotiate from a position of strength and demand greater respect on the international stage. The recent Russian language warning from Iran was more than just a diplomatic gesture. It was a clear signal that Tehran is ready to flex its diplomatic muscle and assert its interests, even with its closest partners. For both countries, this alliance is a powerful tool to challenge U.S. influence and reshape the balance of power in the region. Joint military drills and coordinated diplomatic moves send a message to Washington and its allies that Iran and Russia are united in their defiance. It's a marriage of convenience, forged by necessity, but together Iran and Russia become a formidable force on the global stage. As the world watches this alliance grow, every major power must now factor the Iran-Russia partnership into its calculations and responses. The U.S. took Iran's warning seriously. President Trump doubled down, warning Iran against further crackdowns and hinting at very strong options. The U.S. aimed to project strength, keeping military and economic pressure on Tehran. Yet behind the scenes, diplomatic channels remained open. Reports confirmed ongoing talks between U.S. and Iranian officials, even as threats escalated. Publicly, both sides postured for their audiences. Privately, they sought to avoid outright war. The U.S. response was a mix of toughness and caution. The situation was a high-stakes balancing act. The world watched, hoping diplomacy would prevail. For ordinary Iranians, these power struggles have real consequences. U.S. sanctions have devastated the economy, jobs lost, prices soaring, essentials scarce. Protests are fueled by hardship and government repression. Demonstrators risk arrest, violence, and even death. Internet shutdowns isolate people, deepening frustration and fear. Many young Iranians feel hopeless, trapped between a repressive regime and the threat of war. Some see the supreme leader's defiance as pride, others see it as a distraction from real problems. For most, the true enemy is daily hardship, not foreign powers. The cost of conflict is paid by ordinary people. The Russian language warning marked a turning point in U.S.-Iran tensions. It highlighted shifting alliances and the dangers of miscalculation. Social media has become a new battleground for global diplomacy. The mix of internal unrest, U.S. pressure, and Iran-Russia ties makes the future unpredictable. A single misstep could trigger a wider conflict. Back-channel diplomacy offers hope, but the risks remain high. The fate of millions hangs on the decisions of a few leaders. For Iranians, the struggle for freedom and stability continues. The world hopes for a peaceful resolution, but the stakes have never been higher. In this new era, every message can change the course of history.